Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is now considered a millionaire. This comes after he released 10 years' worth of his tax returns. The 2020 candidate was questioned about it on Fox News last night during a town hall. But as Natalie Brand reports, it was his Medicare for All proposal that drew noticeable applause.
The Vermont senator and Democratic socialist got cheers from a Fox News audience Monday during a televised town hall.
Do you think it makes sense to spend twice as much per capita as the people of any other nation and be the only country in the world not to guarantee health care to all people?
The president tweeted Tuesday, "So weird to watch crazy Bernie on Fox News." He has also been tying Sanders and other Democratic candidates to socialism and framing the upcoming election as the fight against it.
They can talk all they want about socialism. All socialism is a method into the poorhouse.
So far, Sanders has the highest fundraising totals of the Democratic field at a little over $18 million during the first quarter of 2019. President Trump, however, has raised about $30 million in that same period. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Let's bring in Ed O'Keefe, Caitlin Huey-Burns, and Michelle Lee. Ed is a CBS News political correspondent. Caitlin is a CBSN political reporter. And Michelle is a reporter for the Washington Post covering money and influence in politics. Welcome to you all. Ed, I had to check the calendar. It is 2019 still, right?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure. So we heard a portion of Bernie Sanders' town hall on Fox News, and Politico Tuesday said he, quote, often dominated. How crucial was last night's town hall for him?
Well, it wasn't just crucial for him. I think it was crucial for all Democrats and demonstrated that they might actually get a fair shake on Fox News. There's been some concern that they wouldn't. Sanders is interested in making a play for Trump supporters, people who he believes have been wronged and lied to by the president, and so he felt it was important for him to take up this venue. Fox is eager to host Democrats because they wanted to host debates, but they've been boxed out by the DNC, and yet the DNC has said to candidates, you know, you should feel free to appear on Fox if it makes sense. And today we get word that Mayor Pete Buttigieg of Indiana is actually interested in doing a similar town hall with Fox, and with good reason. The Sanders town hall last night was the highest rated of any of these candidate town halls that have been held on cable news all year long. So a win-win for the network and for Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, Caitlin, does Sanders' performance increase the likelihood that more Democrats are actually going to consider town halls on Fox News?
Well, I think Democrats are going to be looking at this town hall and thinking two things. One, that's a massive audience that you can get with Fox News just by sheer numbers alone. You don't have to agree with some of the politics behind the business, but this allows you to get in front of an audience that you are at least trying to attract a small portion of. Remember, all of these candidates are trying to make the case of electability because voters are placing this premium on finding a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump. So you're seeing these candidates try to make that pitch, whether it's campaigning in states that Donald Trump won, that Democrats traditionally did well in, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or by going places like Pete Buttigieg is doing, kind of flooding the zone in terms of media coverage. The other thing that they're looking at, and something we've been talking about all week, is fundraising. The more kind of viral moments you can create, the more of your own kind of media moments that you can control and put out there and kind of capture attention, the more you can attach a fundraising push to it. So we saw Sanders really kind of push out clips from this interview, and we're talking about it today, and people took notice.
So it's interesting, Caitlin, the New York Times has a story out Tuesday about how the Democratic Party donors and party officials are, quote, growing more alarmed about Bernie Sanders' place in this race. What is their concern?
Well, it is interesting to think that, you know, just 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders was this kind of fringe candidate, and now he is something of a front runner. I mean, he's at the top of most polls at this stage in the race, and he's raised the most money, and through grassroots donations mostly. So I think a lot of Democrats are concerned that that Sanders could become the nominee, and that would give Republicans, especially Donald Trump, an opportunity to kind of paint the party as socialist or really left-leaning. Now, most of his proposals have become kind of mainstream in the Democratic Party. I did talk to one Democrat today, though, who fears that by trying to urge Sanders out of the race or to kind of try to overcome him explicitly, that could create a backlash in favor of Sanders and create kind of a redo of 2016. and they're concerned that they need to turn out all Democratic voters. They don't want to alienate any of Bernie Sanders supporters. They want to keep them in the fold.
Michelle, we also saw Monday the first official quarter fundraising, the official first quarter fundraising totals from most Democratic candidates in the race. What are some of your key takeaways from those numbers?
Well, one of the key takeaways is definitely about Bernie Sanders. He certainly is a front runner in terms of the fundraising. He raised the most out of the very crowded Democratic field. He had a huge haul from small dollar donations and had very low dollar average donations to his campaign. And he definitely has a head start. And you can make the argument that this is largely based on the wide supporter network that he built from the 2016 campaign. But that's a huge advantage that he has over this crowded field. Another takeaway was Pete Buttigieg, how much money he's raised, which is $7 million, which is more than 4 separate sitting senators who are running in the campaign right now, and with relatively spending very little on gaining the type of momentum that he's gotten so far. And lastly, when you look at the Democratic field and how much money they've raised so far, the gap between the money that the Democrats have now and the money that President Trump already has stocked away for his 2020 re-election, that's really something that is noticeable. President Trump is really far ahead in terms of raising money. He's raised more money than any sitting president has raised so far at this point in the presidency for the re-election, and Trump really has a head start.
Yeah, President Trump leads the entire 2020 field in fundraising. He pulled in more than the top 2 candidates combined. So, Michelle, what is his strategy here?
He's clearly really drumming up support from his base. They continue to support him very loyally with the steady stream of low dollar donations, $5 at a time, $20 at a time, which just keeps the momentum going. And the other thing that he's able to do by having so much money is that he's able to refine the data operation that his campaign runs. They're able to get to know their voters better, potential voters better, how to reach out to them and really learn their behavior. Yes, really improving their data operation is key.
Well, Caitlin, you have a new piece coming out on CBSNews.com about concerns Democrats have about the president's fundraising ability. So what more can you tell us about that?
Well, Democratic donors and strategists are looking at exactly what Michelle just outlined there. Not only is Trump outraising all of these candidates, but he is able to run a general election campaign, essentially focusing on those targets. So they're very concerned that Democrats aren't yet bringing in that kind of money. They say there's still time. Of course, there's a primary and there could be upwards of 20 candidates, which really stretches the fundraising thin. But what's different this cycle compared to others is that Democrats are really largely sidelining these big dollar donors and these bundlers that could help them raise the kind of money that they could need to compete with someone like Donald Trump, who has joined forces with the RNC and is able to just bring in a ton of money. So Democratic donors, they're not kind of the prize constituency that they once were. So you can take that with a grain of salt, this concern coming from them that they're not these big influential players anymore. But there is also this concern that to run a campaign in this day and age with the kind of tools and resources that you need, there is this concern about Democrats stretching a little too thin here and not being able to compete with Donald Trump at this level. But we'll see. The debates will provide an opportunity for the field to winnow itself out. And as we're seeing with these early numbers, that could also provide some momentum or some, itching out of these candidates for some of them.
Yeah, we're going to be watching those debates so closely. Well, President Trump is not just facing a challenge from Democrats. Former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld is posing a primary challenge to the president. Ed, you interviewed him last month at the South by Southwest Festival, and I want to play some of what he had to say about taking on the president.
You have been, at one time or another, a Republican, a libertarian, someone who's thought about running for the Senate from New York, governor of Massachusetts. For sure you're a Republican at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Republican, unlike Mr. Trump, since I was 18 years old. Not to put too fine a point on it, but he spent most of his life as a New York City Democrat. And, I have always been a Republican who tends toward the liberty side of the party. And my philosophy was summed up in one sentence at the Republican National Convention when I gave a talk in 1992. I want the government out of your pocketbook and out of your bedroom. Simple as that.
So, Ed, in our final minute here in this segment, in what areas does Weld think he can be successful in picking up support?
New Hampshire, New Hampshire, New Hampshire. That's basically the strategy right now. He insists that if it takes off, he's happy to meet the president in Midwestern Rust Belt states. But I think most of his strategy right now is to go up to New Hampshire and cause some trouble and see if there's any way to break through. And it's going to be really hard. The way the Republican National Committee has written the rules makes it virtually impossible for anybody else to try challenging the president. He made the point that in his travels across the country, he's gotten a great reception from Democrats, Republicans, independents, but especially Republicans, he said. He said basically anybody who's not a member of the RNC, which at this point is wired to do whatever it needs to do to get the president renominated by Republicans next year. So he'll try this. It's going to be mostly a protest candidacy, I think, because it's going to be really tricky for him to somehow manipulate the rules and siphon off delegates or really any votes from the president.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, Caitlin Huey-Burns, and Michelle Lee, thank you all.